3 hollow knocks echoed against the bedroom door, shattering the silence of a house where no one else was supposed to be living. Arthur Thorne did not gasp. He did not pull the duvet over his head like a frightened child, nor did he freeze in the paralysis of a nightmare. He was a historian, a man whose career was built on excavating the truth from the debris of the past, and his mind immediately engaged in a frantic but disciplined calculus. The nearest neighbor was 4 miles away through dense, unlit Appalachian forest. The gate at the bottom of the drive was padlocked. The security system, installed just last week, had not chirped, yet the sound had been undeniable. Knock, 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 deliberate, heavy, and mockingly polite. Arthur sat up, the old mattress springs groaning beneath him. The air in the room was stale, carrying the scent of old paper and the damp wood of the Blackwood mansion. His heart hammered against his ribs, a traitorous drumbeat of primal fear that his intellect tried desperately to silence. He reached to the nightstand, his fingers bypassing the trembling glass of water and closing around the cold steel of his Smith & Wesson revolver. In his other hand, he gripped a heavy-duty tactical flashlight. Rationality, he whispered to himself, the word barely a breath. Intruders are physical. Physics applies. He swung his legs out of bed, the floorboards cold against his bare feet. He moved with the practiced silence of a man who had spent months living alone in a creaking, settling structure. He approached the heavy oak door. His hand hovered over the brass handle. If there was someone out there, a drifter, a local kid on a dare, a thief, they were standing right on the other side of the wood. Arthur took a breath, held it, and ripped the door open, raising the flashlight and the gun in a single fluid motion. "Do not move," he roared, his voice cracking slightly at the edges. The beam of light cut through the darkness of the hallway. It illuminated the peeling wallpaper, the dust motes dancing in the sterile beam, and the long, empty stretch of the corridor leading to the stairwell. Nothing. The hallway was empty. The silence that rushed back in was heavier than before, oppressive and thick. Arthur stepped out, sweeping the beam left and right. There were no wet footprints on the floor, no smell of unwashed bodies or cheap tobacco. The shadows stretched and contorted as he moved the light, but they were just shadows. He lowered the gun slightly, a frown etching lines into his forehead. He was not relieved. He was agitated. A hallucination? No. He was 38, sober, and sane. He walked briskly to the control panel of the security system mounted near the stairs. The green light blinked steadily. Armed. All zones secure. Impossible, Arthur muttered. He went to his study just down the hall, where he kept a digital audio recorder running at night, a habit from his fieldwork days to catch sleep talk or sudden ideas, now repurposed to catalog the house's settling noises. He rewinded the file to the last 2 minutes. He pressed play. First, the soft, rhythmic sound of his own breathing, then the silence of the room, and then, clear as day, piercing through the digital static, thud, thud, thud. It was not a settling beam. It was not a pipe. It was knuckles on wood. And it was loud. But the sensors had not triggered. The hallway was empty. Arthur stared at the device, a cold knot tightening in his stomach. He was holding proof of an event that physics said did not happen. He stood there, caught in the friction between his belief in reality and the evidence of his senses. He needed to go back to the bedroom. He needed to check the windows again. He turned back toward his room. As he crossed the threshold, the sound came again. Knock, knock, knock. Arthur spun around, gun raised, aiming at the hallway he had just left. But the sound had not come from the hall. It had not come from the bedroom door. The sound had come from behind him, from the ensuite bathroom. It was distinct. It was the sound of bone hitting glass. The bathroom door was ajar, and inside, the large, antique vanity mirror began to vibrate, a low, buzzing hum that rattled the toothbrushes in their cup. The knock had not been an entry request. It was an invitation. Arthur moved toward the bathroom, his movements stiff, mechanical. The logic that anchored his world was beginning to fray, snapping strand by strand. The plumbing, his mind lied. Vibrations in the pipes can cause glass to rattle. The frequency matches a knock. He clung to that lie. He needed it. If he let go of it, he would be adrift in a darkness he was not equipped to navigate. He pushed the bathroom door open fully with the barrel of the revolver. The bathroom was cold, significantly colder than the bedroom. The air smelled faintly of copper and wet earth, a scent that should not be on the second floor of a dry house. The flashlight beam swept over the white tiles, the porcelain tub with its clawed feet, and finally rested on the mirror above the sink. The vibration had stopped. The glass was still. Arthur approached the sink, his reflection rising to meet him. He looked ragged. His dark hair was matted with sweat, his eyes wide and ringed with exhaustion, the flashlight trembling in his grip. He placed the gun on the marble countertop with a clack, needing a free hand to check the surface of the mirror. He reached out, his fingertips brushing the cold glass. Solid. Unbroken. Pipes? He said aloud, testing the acoustics. Just old pipes. But the house did not let him have the comfort of his voice. The silence swallowed his words instantly, leaving no echo, as if the walls were absorbing the sound. He felt a bead of sweat roll down his temple. He turned on the tap. Water sputtered, brown at first, then clear. He splashed his face, the cold shock momentarily grounding him. He looked up, drying his face with a towel, and checked the reflection again. Everything was normal. The tiles behind him, the open door leading back to the bedroom, the dark rectangle of the bedroom window beyond that. He exhaled, a long, shaky breath. He picked up the gun. He was going to go back to bed. He would call a plumber in the morning. He would call a priest. He would sell the damn place. It did not matter as long as he survived the night. He turned to leave the bathroom. Click. The sound was small, mechanical, and horrifying. It was the sound of the bathroom door latch engaging. But Arthur had not touched the door. He was standing 3 feet away from it. He froze. He watched as the brass handle of the bathroom door slowly, agonizingly, began to turn. It was not turning from the outside. Arthur backed up until his hips hit the vanity. He raised the gun, aiming at the door. "Who's there?" he screamed. The handle stopped turning. The door did not open. Instead, a voice came from the other side of the door, from the bedroom he had just been in. "Who's there?" It was his voice. It was not a recording. It was his exact tone, his exact pitch, but stripped of the fear. It was a flat, perfect imitation of his question, spoken with the curiosity of a predator inspecting a trap. Arthur's finger tightened on the trigger. "I'm armed. Get out. I'm armed. Get out." The voice repeated from the bedroom, overlapping him slightly. This time, the intonation changed. It sounded amused. Arthur realized with a sickening lurch that the sensors had not failed. They had not picked up an intruder because the intruder had not walked down the hall. The intruder had been waiting. He needed to escape. The bathroom window was painted shut. He knew that. He had cursed the previous owner for it just yesterday. He was trapped in a 5x8 tiled box with a single door, and something that sounded like him was standing right on the other side. Then came the knock again. Knock! 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 But it did not come from the door. Came from behind him again. Arthur spun around, facing the mirror. The glass was vibrating violently now, the image blurring. He was not looking at a reflection of the room anymore. The vibration was not mechanical. It was the glass shivering in proximity to something immense and wrong. Arthur stared into the glass, and for a moment, his brain refused to process the visual data. It was a defense mechanism, a cognitive blind spot trying to protect his sanity from imploding. In the mirror, the bathroom was the same. The tiles were the same. The towel rack was the same. But the perspective was wrong. In the reflection, the bathroom door behind Arthur was wide open. In reality, the door was closed and latched. Arthur watched, paralyzed, as the reflection showed the bedroom beyond the open bathroom door. And standing there, in the doorway of the reflection, was Arthur Thorne. It was wearing his pajamas. It had his hair. It had his face. But the proportions were grotesque. The thing in the mirror was too tall, its head grazing the top of the doorframe. Its arms hung low, the fingers unnaturally long, counting an extra joint on each digit. The creature in the reflection was not looking at the back of Arthur's head. It was looking directly into the mirror, making eye contact with the real Arthur. The reflection smiled. It was a smile that split the face too wide, revealing too many teeth, packed together like slate shingles. The realization hit Arthur with the force of a physical blow, driving the air from his lungs. The knocks, the missing knife from last week, the feeling of being watched. They were not trying to get in. They had never been outside. "You not in the mirror?" Arthur whispered, tears of pure, distilled terror springing to his eyes. The thing in the reflection moved its lips in perfect sync with Arthur's words, but no sound came out. Instead, Arthur felt a hot, humid breath against the back of his neck. The mirror was not showing him a monster in another dimension. The mirror was showing him the truth of the room he was standing in right now. The creature was a mimic, an ambush predator from the deep woods that blended into the perception of its prey. It was standing directly behind him, physically, in the real bathroom. It had been there when he washed his face. It had been there when he checked the glass. The knocks were a game, a test of reflexes, a way to gauge his awareness. Arthur watched in the mirror as the figure behind him slowly raised a hand. The long, multi-jointed fingers hovered inches from his right ear. He could feel the static electricity, the sheer malice radiating from the being. "Turn around," the voice whispered. It came from directly behind his ear, not from the reflection. It sounded like crackling dry leaves shaped into words. "Look at me, Arthur." It wanted acknowledgement. It wanted him to validate its existence with his fear. It fed on the logic he used to try and deny it. Every time he rationalized a noise, every time he checked a lock, he was playing its game, tightening the noose around his own neck. He was going to die here, in a bathroom, alone, killed by a thing that wore his face. The creature's hand touched his shoulder. The grip was iron hard, the fingers cold enough to burn through the fabric of his shirt. "Look at me," it commanded, the voice dropping an octave, becoming a growl that vibrated in Arthur's chest bones. Arthur's eyes darted in the reflection. He saw the oil lamp he had brought in earlier. No, he had not brought a lamp. Why was there a lamp in the reflection? He looked down at the vanity in the real world. There, sitting next to the sink, was the antique kerosene lamp he had been restoring. He must have carried it in with him in his days, or... No, the creature had moved it, objects appearing and disappearing. The creature's grip tightened. It was going to snap his collarbone. Arthur looked at the lamp. It was heavy brass, filled with oil, an archaic light source, fire. The forest was old. The creature was old. It mimicked humanity, but it was not human. It belonged to the dark, damp, slow places of the woods. It belonged to the cold. Arthur stopped shaking. It was not courage. It was the clarity of a man who realized the chessboard had been flipped, so he might as well burn the table. Logic had failed him. Rationality was the seasoning this thing liked on its meat. The creature expected him to turn around, to scream, to beg, to fire his gun uselessly into a hide that was likely bulletproof. It expected a human reaction. Arthur closed his eyes. "No," he said softly. The grip on his shoulder spasmed in confusion. "Look at me," the mimic hissed, the voice cracking, sounding like wood splitting. Arthur grabbed the kerosene lamp with his left hand. He did not turn around. He did not try to shoot the monster over his shoulder. Instead, he smashed the glass chimney of the lamp against the porcelain edge of the sink. Oil splashed everywhere, over the counter, onto his own shirt, and backwards onto the creature. "Light!" Arthur screamed, and he jammed the muzzle of his revolver against the spark wheel of the broken lamp, pulling the trigger. The gunshot was deafening in the small space, but the spark was what mattered. The muzzle flash ignited the kerosene instantly. Whoosh! The bathroom erupted. A wall of orange and blue flame engulfed the vanity and flashed backward. The scream that tore from the creature's throat was not human. It was a high-pitched, oscillating shriek that sounded like a saw hitting a nail. The grip on Arthur's shoulder vanished as the entity recoiled, thrashing in the sudden inferno. The heat was instantaneous and searing. Arthur felt his eyebrows singe, felt the skin on his arm blister. He did not look back. He did not check to see if the monster was burning. He hurled his body at the painted-shut window above the bathtub. Adrenaline is a powerful drug. Arthur went through the glass and the wood frame as if they were made of sugar. He fell. Gravity took him, breathless and flailing, into the cool night air. He hit the porch roof below, rolled, and tumbled off the edge, crashing into the overgrown azalea bushes on the muddy ground. A sickening crack echoed from his right leg, louder than the gunshot. Arthur screamed, a raw, animal sound of agony, as white-hot pain shot up his thigh. He gasped, vomiting bile into the dirt, clutching his shattered leg. But he did not stop. He dragged himself, clawing at the mud with his fingernails, pulling his broken body inch by inch away from the house. Above him, the mansion was waking up, not with ghosts but with fire. The flames had caught the old, dry timber of the structure with terrifying speed. The bathroom window was belching black smoke. Arthur dragged himself to the edge of the gravel driveway, gasping, his vision graying out. He rolled onto his back, looking up at the inferno he had created. The fire was roaring now, consuming the history, the secrets, and the lies of the Blackwood mansion. The heat beat against his face, warring with the chill of the forest. He looked up at the second-floor window, his bedroom window. The fire was behind it, glowing bright orange. And there, framed against the wall of flames, stood the figure. It was not burning. It stood perfectly still, watching him,